up, HyperChange? Welcome to another episode. Today we're mixing it up a little. Got my friend Aidan here. He's been on HyperChange before, fun fact. But what up, Aidan? Welcome to the show.
Dude, so pumped to be here. So just a couple days ago, I was talking to Gali out by the beach in Santa Monica, and I was like, dude, you interview everyone, but when was the last time you had someone interview you? So we want to bring a special opportunity to the HyperChangers and get a bunch of questions off to Gali to learn more about how he got to where he is. So I'm super stoked for this.
Yeah, I was sold. Aidan pitched me on it, and he's like, bro, I have a pitch for you. And we're walking back to my Tesla, and then I get to and he's like, no, we got to get in the Tesla for the pitch. And I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. And so he pitches me to interview me. So I was like, all right, I'm down. And I feel like there's a lot of things that I don't say on the channel, or like I don't feel like are right for videos about the kind of strategy, what I'm actually doing with my life and sort of career beyond making content. And so, but how that relates to content in the same way, like HyperGuap, VC deals, scheming, like all of that kind of stuff.
And how you like got to where you are, like, and what was your journey? Did you think about it? Like, what led you to starting your own YouTube channel? Was this something that you always wanted to do? And like, what led you to like investing? And then how you gotten like to build this kind of like empire now of HyperChange, HyperGuap, HyperCharts, and building your personal brand on the internet?
Yeah, totally. I mean, what I think it is it's like, you're locked into the system, right? I'm going to college, I'm gonna get a job, I gotta get a job to pay my bills. Like maybe when I'm 60, I'll be rich enough to like do what I want with my life. But until then, I'm gonna get the best job that the world gives me and just work my ass off and see what happens. And then I was doing that, and then and you kind of like tell yourself you're working for your passion, but like you're working for startups, I'm working, investing for other people. And then I just stumbled upon Gary Vee and his whole theory of like crushing it, like what are you good at, what's your passion, how do you build a business around it. And I've been investing for 10 years at that point. Like I started when I was 14, read the Buffett book, and then I've just been getting super into investing. And this was like a couple years out of college. I had like been doing some Seeking Alpha, but I was working at the startup, and then I was like, damn, this sucks. Like this is my chance. Gary Vee was ironically an investor in that startup, and that they were like, we got this sick investor named Gary Vee, like you should definitely check him out. And I'm like, okay. So
you discovered Gary Vee for the first time when you were working at your first startup right out of college?
Basically. And that was the start. Originally out of college, I was managing money. So that's what I was doing. I was blogging, found this really cool guy who became my mentor. And then he's just this amazing investor, taught me a bunch of stuff. I was working for him, doing research on all the companies he owns.
And that was supporting you, or were you working another job at the time?
That was supporting me. And so I started doing that my junior year of college. And like he gave me $500,000 to manage and see how I did. And then sort of, do research for his portfolio, which was way bigger than that. And then, so I kept doing that. I think I started sophomore or junior year.
Yeah.
Did that after college, was super in the investing game, but then he wanted me to do small cap NASDAQ because that's a clear arbitrage. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, we're going to have Gali compete with these small cap NASDAQ managers. That's kind of what I had blogging about at the time. Like there's, less good institutional research there. We'll actually be able to have an edge. And that's where he was getting a lot of his alpha. So, but then after a while, like I'm researching all these small cap companies and I'm like, these aren't the companies changing the world, yo. Like this isn't like, I want Tesla. I'm obsessed with Bitcoin. Like I'm at NYU blogging about Bitcoin for the school newspaper. And so
when was that? Like when Bitcoin was like,
that was in 2013.
Wow.
When I bought my first some Bitcoin. And then, yeah, so I'm telling my mentor this, and I don't know, he just wasn't. Now he's a huge Tesla investor, but it's funny because at the time he wasn't into Tesla or Bitcoin, and I was. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna go my own path. Ended up like scheming at Sweetgreen with one of my investor friends about the food system, sitting next to these two employees at a food startup, and they heard me just going off, and they were like, bro, like, can we hire you? Like,
no way.
What's good? And then next thing you know, I'm working there for 6 months, and that's the company that Gary Vee was an investor in. And yeah, it was a really good learning experience. Like that was my only real job.
So that was right, like when you were at Sweetgreen, you got this job out of college at the startup, and you were there for 6 months, and then what happened?
Or that was like a year. I'd been like managing money for this guy and doing research for his portfolio for like a year. Okay,
so then why'd you get the job in the first place? What made you?
Well, I was like, I don't want to research small cap tech companies. I want to like invest in companies that are changing the world, or go work for a startup that is.
Got it.
And so this startup, I just still see a massive opportunity in the food system. Like I think we all eat super not fresh, not healthy food, and that's not that good, frankly. And that's why we eat processed, unhealthy fast food, because we don't have amazing options of fresh, amazing produce that's grown locally. And so that company was trying to tackle that problem, and I was like, going to work on this problem I want to do that. And so, it didn't work out, whatever. It's hard to change the food system, but that's why I was like, that's more inspiring to me than just managing money in this small cap tech portfolio.
But I think like that thread of being drawn to a startup that was in the food system was enough to make you go into like the quote unquote corporate world or get a job at a company.
Yeah.
Because like it had such an impact, and you're into like gardening and developing food supply, like you're saying, and this was a way for you to like tap into that. And I think that's something that you're going to continue to be passionate about as you build your investing career.
Totally. And it was like I don't know, I thought it was awesome because it was like a 6-person startup, right? So it was like super small, super personal, and like or maybe like 10 or 12 people.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like I was going to work for a big company. I felt like I was doing something fun, and I was in charge of like the farms division. So that's basically like the farm side of the platform. Like we have, chefs on one side in New York City, and then we have all these local farms, and we literally have a couple trucks that deliver food, like harvest to order. Like you order it on the app, we tell our farmers, they harvest it at 6 a.m. Our truck comes by at noon. We bring everything to the loading bay, sort it by restaurant, put it on the truck, and then get it into Manhattan like the next day. So it's like 48 hours from harvest to chef. So it's so dope, and it was so exciting, and I was in charge of the farm division. And so my job is to literally Google the hell out of what is a dope farm growing amazing food super locally that's probably distributing it to some like, retailer in Jersey, selling it to ShopRite, getting next to some crappy tomatoes, when really these are amazing Jersey tomatoes. We should be telling their story. This should be the highlight of a chef's menu. And so my job was
telling
to,
the story of different food supplies already. You're
like I was angel investing in farmers almost. That's what I felt like. So I would just find these farmers. Like farmers are such cool, passionate people, and like just amazing really to talk to. And they're so chatty, bro. They don't talk to any other humans, so they're just like just chit chatting with all these farmers. And I'm like, yo, what if I told you like we could make it easier for you and sell your produce for like triple the whatever price and get it onto these crazy chefs in Manhattan? Look at their Instagram. And so yeah, I was like, it was the funnest job ever, because I was basically just driving. I would rent this zip car and then drive all around Jersey and New York, just going to farms, and like pull over at a farmer's market, do some like Google Maps radaring, and be like, okay, this looks like a really dope area. It's called the I think it's called like the Black Soil region or something, where they grow these amazing garlic and onions in up lower state New York. And then you're looking at like the satellite map of like, damn, like what's a farm here that we can't get, that's maybe under the radar, that's like, anyway, there's a whole scheme with it, but I love that job.
And that was like your first kind of way into like the startup world and operating and like what goes on within the company. And then you started learning about Gary Vee. And I think like, have your viewers heard about how you went from that job to starting HyperChange, and like how you were able to get started and how you were able to build the channel and take it off the ground?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've said it before, but might as well say it again.
Yeah.
But then, so it was like, okay, so in the food company was one thing, but really for investing was like my true passion. That's what I've been doing for years. Like, I was already so stoked about Tesla, investing in Tesla, telling them like, why do we have these like gas trucks? We need to buy Tesla trucks, So I was already scheming on that. And like, then that's when I saw the Gary Vee thing. It was like, all right, like what can I actually build a startup around? Like what is my actual skill set? It's knowing the stock market. I put in my 10,000 hours. Like I think I'm really good at investing. I want to share that with people. And I think the product that the investing world's missing, the show that I wanted to watch, was a really dope investor who was just honest and authentic and said what they thought and open sourced their investing diary. Imagine if Warren Buffett, for every single one of investments for his entire career, like open sourced it. He didn't have the internet, so he couldn't, but that's what I think the Warren Buffett of our generation is doing. It's open sourcing their investment research, building a track record that way, giving their ideas away for free to try and inspire people and kind of do cool shit. And so that's what I saw the vision. That's where I saw the industry headed. And I was like, I want to be in that world. I want to be one of those people. I want to be one of these thought leaders that sort of educates people and doesn't make them dumber, like CNBC. And the bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. And so it just kind of clicked with Gary Vee, like do Twitter, do YouTube. And I was like, bro, there's going to be some kid who like is like, Mark Zuckerberg. That was the whole thing, the social network. Like anyway, the point is every industry was just going through this like bet on the internet, bet on the new way of doing it. And I just felt like finance hadn't cracked yet. Like it was a little bit too, I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm curious though. So you had the investing skill, but how did you take that and build HyperChange? Like where did the video skills come from? Because to me, what's really interesting, it's not just that you're an investor, but it's that you're a content creator. And it's at the intersection of the two, and how many people can produce really good content and be one of the best investors in the world and bring those two together.
Yeah, well, I would say my content sucks. And so I've always been into making videos. Like I recently discovered that looking back through like my old hard drives of like cell phones I used to have in like middle school and high school, like I would always record me and my friends doing dumb shit and just like I don't know, like I just have these funny videos of like me and my friend going to like the buffet and just like narrating all of it and just
in, like,
being
high school
hella
or
funny and
something,
like
or
in high
college?
school and
Yeah.
like I don't know, like it wasn't like I didn't post it anywhere. I just like made it so we could watch it because it was funny.
So you edit content, you got familiar with like the kind of the videography process.
Yeah, and like
so
documenting the moment. Like that's what I'm passionate about. Like I don't create content. Like I was talking to one of my director friends, like he's amazing, Tanner. Like he's got such a creative vision. He puts like so much work and planning into every word, into every shot, into every second on film, and he's creating a world that you like get brought into by his content. So my content is totally different. It's like me bringing my tiny little camera, maybe my phone on my gimbal that you barely notice, to just document the real world around me, not create a scene. And so that's the kind of content I like. And then it was like with HyperChange, it's like, wait, like this is such an amazing show. Like me, you know, I would do all this random stuff before. Like I was an investor in Jones Soda, like the quirky Seattle soda brand. I don't know, just for fun, but like would go to the shareholder meeting, like and those are some of the first HyperChange episodes, and like would go to the store with Julian and like check out the soda and like.
So it was almost like a Vice. Like
yes, I love Vice. Yes, I'm so glad you said that.
Like you would kind of really go into like, this isn't just investing from behind an Excel sheet. Like we're testing out the product.
Yeah,
we're gonna kick the wheels.
Yeah,
like, it's and that's kind of been your emphasis, like on Tesla. You, like when you went to go see Neo, it was always about like, I want to see like the actual thing they're creating and not just be like a bunch of hype and numbers.
Dude, exactly. Yeah, so Vice was like the biggest inspiration for me. I still love Vice. I think they're so amazing, and like I don't know, just the whole way that they do content and show you what's happening on the ground in just such an authentic way. I think that's the future of journalism and like everything. And so nobody was doing that for investing, and I still don't think really is in the kind of, I don't know, but it just, it just kind of clicked with me that like my storytelling passion and my investing passion have this big overlap, and like there's also a huge need in the market, and this is a product that I can do by myself.
And take me through like when you were making those like first few videos, like what were your like expectations? Like what did you think was going to happen when you were like early on in HyperChange?
I mean, I remember my sister being rattled that I told her I quit my job to do that, or like I was gonna do that. And like I don't know, my expectations were that I don't know, I was gonna do it. I saw Jeremy Financial Education. He had 7,000 subscribers. I was watching him blow up, and he said he was making like a couple grand a month on AdSense. He made a video about it, and now I'm friends with Jeremy, which is awesome. He's so cool. And I was like, you know what? Like I can just do this, and I feel like the demand is there. And like if you're actually great and you actually find great companies and you put out amazing information, like the rest will follow. And so I don't know, I think you just got to what I realized is HyperChange was the first time I like really bet on myself with an idea. I mean, it was really well thought out with like the strategy, but just, I think that's such a powerful thing that a lot of people in our generation don't even give themselves, is the chance to bet on themselves and believe in yourself and be like, you know what? I actually think I can be good at this. And so I'm going to set myself up to at least be able to try, you know?
And what was it that kind of gave you that confidence that like you can do this, that like you saw someone else doing it, Jeremy, you were like, I feel like I know finance too. Like what gave you the confidence to be like, you know what, I'm gonna bet on myself right now, I'm gonna do this? Was there a particular thing, or was it just more like a feeling about like this was something that felt right?
Well, I think we called Amazon Whole Foods, and so that was a big one. Like, I don't know, when the channel had like 800 subscribers, like I would make the Moonshot Mondays, right. And one of them was, you know, Amazon should buy Whole Foods. They're going to push into food. They're going to push into brick and mortar. Here's why. And they did it. And so that was super early on in HyperChange, like right when I had started going full time. And then I was like, I'm sold. Like, I get it. This wasn't being written about anywhere. Like, we schemed this up. We shot the video. This proves that people that just hustle and use the internet can get as good insight on the market and bring sort of bleeding edge alpha information to the market before Wall Street. And so that just, gave me the confidence to be like, yep, even though Tesla's being studied by Goldman Sachs, by JP Morgan, by the biggest hedge funds in the world, I can have an alpha arbitrage if I just think differently and use the internet and use something like social media data. Like I was collecting in 2012, in 2013, all of this social media data on organic growth in Twitter and Facebook of Tesla versus like I still have these spreadsheets of like the Facebook followers every single week or month of every single big auto brand. And then I would track the comments and likes per post. And then you see, wait, Tesla's growing insanely faster. All the other ones are paying for their exposure to increase. Tesla's not paying. Their engagement per post is through the roof. Like this is evidence that is the financial world's too slow to comprehend actually having alpha that has all the alpha that shows you which brand is ahead, that it's probably 10 years ahead of the financials, right? And so it's kind of like, it just gave me so much confidence in this thesis that the internet is Warren Buffett, everybody else investing is literally driving, looking in the rearview mirror at financials. And this idea that the internet has so much metadata that's actionable, that gives you an insight into months, if not years ahead of that, you know, the status quo of what people are looking at, then like.
So there's like a few trends of realizing that you had some proof points with like the Whole Foods and kind of seeing Tesla moving, and then this idea that the internet was giving you like, it was becoming a new age of investing. It wasn't looking back and looking at the financials and seeing things. It was where were things going, what were things happening in real time, that you realized that there was a disconnect in how Wall Street was currently operating and a huge room for kind of opportunity.
Yeah, it's just that like the internet democratizes information, and if you were really early on understanding that and kind of seeing how it translated into financial markets, that to me felt like a huge opportunity. And I frankly still feel like it's a hugely underpriced opportunity, is to look at internet metadata it's just, and that's why Tesla worked. Like no Wall Street firms really got Tesla. It was all retail people, which I think is so amazing and inspiring. And I think, you know, it sounds lame to say like the internet changes everything, but the internet really did. Like, and the internet allowed people to do the research beyond kind of these status quo methods.
So let's switch gears a bit. Like I'm curious, I want to talk a little bit about like your startup investing and like how you got into, do you remember your first startup check? Are you able to disclose that? And what was it like what did you know about startup investing before you wrote your first check? And what have you learned since?
Totally. I mean, I feel like I can definitely disclose. Yeah, so my first check I ever wrote for the startup game was Adams, and I did it through Shrug. And so huge shout out to Neve and Adams. I love Adams.
When you say you did it through Shrug, was that through an SPV?
Yeah.
Okay. And when was that? Just
probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I love the Adams shoes. I saw Allbirds totally blow up. I'm a big believer in this direct-to-consumer thesis, is disrupting a lot of fashion and retail. I love the team. I love the product. I still love my Adams. Like I wear them all the time. I think they're an amazing company. And yeah, so that was my first one. And then I kind of want to just get my feet wet. Like Neve was a huge influence on me. Cause he was like, yo, like you have so much opportunity. You gotta, and I've always been obsessed with startups and been about this game, but I was so deep in the Tesla world, like so deep. Took all my research, all my focus for years, and then slowly, maybe like a year, honestly, maybe like a year and a half ago, when Tesla started becoming super profitable and the story started blowing up, and like it was clear they're going to succeed. Like I feel like my attention started naturally diverting to like, okay, what's the next thing? Where can I get the next alpha? Like, and for me, a lot of that arbitrage opportunity, for better or worse, comes in private markets because A, it's really hard to compete in that space. It's really hard to find out what's going on. And if you can get in, there's huge opportunity for alpha. And I saw the channel as an opportunity to have leverage and say, even though I'm going to write you a couple $1,000 check, even though I'm not a VC, even though I have a YouTube channel and I hustle and I have an audience and like I want to partner with you and I think I can add value to your company. Like that message started resonating, and I realized like, wait, this is a savage opportunity for once again sort of like seeing this arbitrage of digital media being sort of an X factor when you're negotiating with any venture deal or venture firm or startup, and in this super organic, authentic way. Like I think the future of all investing like will be great investors, and it won't be like, oh, this firm led this round. It'll be like, this is great investors involved, and sort of like, you know, the influencer creator world leeching into everything. But
so there's two things that I think I want to like break down there. Like one is like how you used your YouTube channel to kind of get like work with entrepreneurs, interview entrepreneurs, and what you are able to bring to their companies and brands. And then the second thing is like from a viewer standpoint, people know about Tesla, right? People it's a big company. Maybe it was still up and coming when you got started a few years ago, and not everyone was so sure on where it was gonna go. But people knew about the company. How does but with these smaller companies that you're interviewing, like, what's the education like? I mean, some of these companies are a lot more risky, right, that you're talking about, and might go away. So how do you think about that for your viewers too when they're spending their time looking at the content?
Right. And so maybe it'd be helpful first to say, like, I guess the thread connecting all of this is like that passion for documenting these stories that have the opportunity to turn into like great businesses that change the world for the better. I don't care what size the company or what stage. Like Tesla was a baby with no revenue, with just a couple investors and a PowerPoint at one point. Yeah. So is every great company, but then they get big. And so it doesn't matter what stage they're in. I just want to find them, and then through that lens of like documenting and telling their story, and just because I'm genuinely interested and fascinated by it. And then the startup investing sort of becomes layered into that of like, okay, well now I have excess cash flow. Now, like, I think this is dope, and I'm here at your factory and I want to give you $5,000. And now wait, I'm putting that in my video, and all my investors are like, we also want to give you $5,000. And then next thing you know, it's like, well, wait, maybe we're actually a way better alternative to your lame VC, because we're cool, we love the product, we're super long term. And instead of having the founders having these meetings just droning on and on with all these different VCs, they can just sort of like tell their story on the internet in a podcast, and then let their favorite investors find them. And I think that's where the whole thing's kind of headed. So
it's such a different model when, like, instead of, it's so much like, people always talk about more than the check, right, in the VC world. Like, it's more the money and the value that you add. But like, there hasn't been that many like content creator like investors in like the history, because before the internet you were at like a major news outlet, right, and then you had to control the story that you told. But now you're able to say whatever you want to say. You're able to share the story by going and kicking the wheels on the ground, talking to the founder, going to the company headquarters and saying that story. And so that's putting the company in the light that was never possible before, which is helping to, with hiring, with them raising money in the future, connect with your network, connect with potential customers. Like, these are all things that like the content VC is unlocking.
I'm in a moral dilemma as well, because I'm like, I love giving my content away for free on the internet. That's something I'm super passionate about, is like just cultivating that sort of vibe on the internet of financial creators. Is like, I don't want to be behind a paywall. Like,
for sure, all
these other people, when I'm on the, growing up in this industry, it's like, okay, everything's a secret. You want to work for a great fund, keep all your great research a secret. You have a great investment idea, tell your boss so they can make a ton of money on it. It's a secret. Like, I hated that closed walled garden philosophy of thought that was like so prevalent in the finance industry. And so I don't know, I don't know how that relates into all of this, but that's a reason why a lot of amazing investors aren't content creators, is because they think they need to keep their ideas secret, and they think they can never be wrong. And so I think that's the greatest strength of HyperChange, is that I'm down to be wrong, and I actually want to be wrong, because that's when I learn. And so that philosophy is just so foreign to like, I'm gonna wear a suit, and like, if I'm a financial person, like everything I say is great, like you don't understand everything, I'm speaking a different language, but like trust me because I'm wearing a suit and I look good. Like, that's just so dumb and old school and just so archaic and legacy. But it's like, that's what I'm up against. Like, that's why I don't know.
That's where the need is.
That's where the need is. And that's why people gravitate towards these new authentic creators, because it's so real and so just awesome. And like, it's like a breath of fresh air. Or a breath of fresh air.
Breath of fresh air.
It's a breath of fresh air. Exactly.
What's that noise?
Oh, it's on cruise control. That's why I was doing that.
So, like, one thing I want to talk about too is like this, like, you've been covering Tesla for so long, and you were saying lately you've been switching more over to like covering startups and telling their story. Like, what has that been like, and how have you felt like you had to change like your analysis and the way you think about like your diligence process?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I just think of it as myself on the journey to being the investor I want to be. It's not like I'm changing it. I'm just sort of evolving constantly. And yeah, and then startup, like, yeah, I don't know. It's honestly, part of it's really frustrating because I can't Well, I'm not allowed to. I already said that, but maybe ask or what were you trying to get at there?
We'll just keep rolling with
yeah.
that.
How is Tesla different than the startups? And
like, I think what I'm trying to get at is like
why startups?
No, not like why startups. Like how you went from like talking about something that like a lot of people could look at and had access to all these financial like data, and you built your models, and you did your like thinking, and you had these short shareholder reports, and then how you've like transitioned to like now private companies, like you might have way access to less information, like you like a lot more is uncertain. The business model could change overnight. Like it's like less of like a developed company. And so how does that change like the way you think about like diligence and developing like your thesis and conviction?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that there's a difference between public and private markets. That to me is like another just in like a microcosm of the entire way the financial world just doesn't understand the real world, and that's why they miss all these amazing opportunities. I'm giving a company money that I think whose equity will be worth significantly more in the future. Like I'm maybe not giving them money directly if I'm buying their stock, but still indirectly supporting the equity price. And I want to own equity in something that's going to go way up. And I want to bet on a founder who's like, I'm all about the founder, bet on the jockey, not the horse, bet on a business model where I see like this light at the tunnel, massive value creating entity with a huge equity price. But I have to believe something the world doesn't believe for it to get there. And that's why my contrarian take will allow me to have huge alpha, because I have this different belief. So Tesla doesn't seem like a startup, but it is a startup because they had to succeed. They had to build an EV from scratch in the US, do it profitably, and sell it direct to consumer, make 1 million innovations at once, and they had to succeed. So when I started following Tesla, the Model 3 wasn't ramped. They weren't making money. It was still like a huge contrarian take to say we were all going electric, to say Tesla was gonna win. And so in many ways, it felt like this early kind of seeing an industry before anybody even acknowledges there is an industry, and then betting on the founder who's building the best product in that space. And the financials will always lag the product and the founder's sort of work in. So that's where I feel like Tesla was a super startup. But it's also like, okay, on one level, I'm saying they're the same, but they're different because I don't have financials, right? I also think people put way too much weight into the financials, but if you just Google a startup, and frankly, if you're in the startup game and talking to startups, you'll be able to get a flavor of their financials, or enough of it to where it's like, okay, this is your ARR, this is how many customers you have, like this is kind of how fast you're growing. Like you'll still get a little bit of that information, but the truth is, if you're looking at the financials when you're startup investing, like you're kind of missing the whole point. Like you're not betting on the company's financials today, you're betting on like how big the product or service could be and what the financials will look like at that point. And so it's all about product, it's all about team. That's the entire like way to focus on startups, even more so than it was at Tesla in the early stage, right?
Yeah.
So but I love startups. Like it's all about, to me, the founder. And like, so I can give you a couple of my rules. Rule number one, if they haven't built it already and it doesn't work and people aren't using it, then like you don't have a company and you don't have a startup. And like, why are we talking about raising money? Like go build something people want first. Yeah. Like that'll save you literally, I think it'll save you 9 out of 10 crappy checks you'll write, is because you're like, wait, like these guys want to raise $1 million so then they can start putting their time into coding this? No, like they should be working for free, eating ramen, figuring out how to do the MVP. Like this train is leaving the station with or without you. If that's not the vibe you get, then they just don't have the hustle or chutzpah to like get there. So that's one of my rules. I want to see founders who like put a bunch of their own money in, who are building something that's like give a shit factor is one of my favorite lessons, which honestly Elon really embodies with Tesla. But just like, does the founder care? Is this their whole life? Are they obsessed with this? Like, are they willing to sacrifice to make this company change the world? Like, that's such an intuitive gut feeling about people and reading their emotions and intentions, that I think that is the biggest thing when you're startup investing, is reading that on the team. And that's why like I love investing in public companies, but you don't get that access. And luckily, like I got on a conference call, I got to ask Elon some stuff. Martin at Tesla's been incredible. I get access to them. But like startups, like you get access to the founders. Like it's almost, to me, seems ridiculous that people like investing in companies where like they don't talk to the founder, they don't want to meet the founder, they don't want to go to the shareholder meeting, they don't, like, you should want to do all of that.
Totally.
And startups are fun because you can do that. I get to try the product. They can scheme with me on the product. I don't have to go over the wall on a public company, which is so annoying. Like they can't tell Tesla can't tell me if they're good schemes because I'm not allowed to unless I go over the wall. It's like, well, that means we're not scheming, which means like, you know, business isn't happening. I don't know. It just feels like there's not a free flow of ideas and value. And so I love that about the startup world, where I can be like, yo, like, I think we should do this. Like, can I get on the phone with that person right now and make the intro, and like, we'll set up this business move, and like, this is gonna be material as fuck. That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
You know?
So is that how you feel? Like, you feel like when you're investing in startups, like you becoming a partner, you're like, oh, I'm like a teammate now. Like, is that how you view yourself as an investor when you join these early stage companies?
Dude, totally. And I want to be their favorite investor, like when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Maybe at the first time they're like, all right, like, I don't know. In some companies I'm not, because I just like can't add value.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to be on the cap table. But like, even in those cases, like, oh, wire the money ASAP. I don't ask questions. Like, I shut up and I just am there to support if I possibly
You're
can.
trying to be their favorite, easiest favorite investor.
Yeah, just their, like, that's rule number one when I invest, is like, I work for the founder. Like, I'm not just gonna be, you know, they want money, I wire it there. I say I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it. Like,
yeah,
it sounds really simple, but that etiquette really goes a long way. And I really try and be like, yo, like, I'm not gonna talk about your product unless I love it. Even if I'm like already an investor in your company, like, I'm only gonna, but that's gonna be such an organic, authentic way. And then I have this open source way with all the amazing people who watch HyperChange to give me ideas and feedback and explore these new products or services. So that's the thing I really want to bring to your company, is like entering the HyperChange universe of feedback, of early customers, of capital, of just energy, of we are part of building this epic, inspiring future. And I want to make you a part of that conversation by investing in you and telling your story on my channel. And so, yeah.
So let's talk then a little bit about HyperGuap and how, like, I'm not sure if you're able to talk about your first deal yet.
Oh yeah, I can talk about it.
And how you're building this like investing like syndicate community, and the way you see that pride and value for startups, and like what you want to build with it.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, I just got, you know, so it started kind of like out of necessity, I feel like, because so many people saw the check I wrote into SpaceX and like wanted to be a part of that. So I want to give my community the opportunity to be a part of that. And the best business model, after exploring and looking at the venture space of how to bring in my audience and platform into the venture world, was like, okay, how is this going to happen? I should do a syndicate. I should, you know, Jason Calacanis, I had him on the show. He's amazing. Has the world's biggest syndicate, 4,000, 5,000 people. I was like, this is an amazing model. I can make my accredited investor. So yeah, so we launched the HyperGuap video, basically say apply. We had like 1,000+ applications. It was incredible, amazing response. We already had like 500 members at the time of the first deal. And then I'm able to essentially show those 500 members who are accredited investors who signed up to be a part of the platform and get my deal flow. And we did the first deal, that was Carta.
And you guys raised 10 million for that?
We're not supposed to technically say that, but yeah. And we had 75 LPs, and we did that, you know, however figure deal. Like, my goal was to do 2 to 4. We crushed that, and I just saw the demand was there. Like, literally, like, raised money from this company, you know, in a week or two, deployed the capital, did it from all these people who are now super pumped about the product. Like, just like the company didn't have to interface with the LPs. I handled all of that, you know, and I'm super proud about HyperGuap, because it's like, I built the website, like, I'm answering every email, I did every phone call, and like, that's why it hasn't been moving. That's why I'm excited to potentially bring you on, because it's like, this first deal worked so well, but it was so much work. Like, I don't know, I feel like I kind of like put my entire life on hold for 2 months to like try and do my channel and my content and run like a mega VC deal all at the same time. Like, that was just way too much to chew, honestly.
Yeah.
And like, it kind of burned me out and really frustrated me that I couldn't put more of my juju into like HyperChange content and ideas and that creative output. And so that's why I also stopped doing deals for the last 2 months, because I was like, unless I have a team that makes this easier, like, it's not worth my time. Like, I want to spend my time on HyperChange. But the flip side is like, me becoming this VC, leading this firm, the companies I'm talking, like, even today I had like 3 amazing calls, or 3 whatever, like the companies I'm talking to, the people I'm gonna interface, the schemes. Maybe it's not all able to be public, but obviously I try to make it public and like try to do the interviews when I can.
Yeah.
But that makes me a better investor, and that is my investing journey. And like, frankly, like that, you know, that's where the alpha is. That's where there's huge ability for me to make a ton of money really fast, and that's why I want to do it. And I'm
by
interested
getting to these
in
companies early and talking to the founders and getting that
and like getting
information.
carry and like getting carry on an 8-figure deal is huge. And like, you know, right now HyperGuap's just been me spending a bunch of money on lawyers. Like I've just lost a ton of money. So it's, I don't want to make it seem like it's that dope, but you know, it's like I don't know. So something frustrated me about, but okay, oh yeah, the point I was making there is, the thing I love about it is that it puts me at the center of HyperChange, the companies that are changing the world faster than ever, building this amazing future. A lot of them are private. A lot of them are super hard to talk to. If you don't have a VC fund with millions, if you're not a deal maker or move maker, they don't care about you. They don't want to interface with you. Like, this is my cost to play the game, so I can be in the game, so I can bring you the schemes and the content and show you what is really happening. Like, I got to be in the game. Like, as much as it sucks that I'm taking a little bit of my attention away to do HyperGuap, or I think I figured that out now, which is amazing, but like I'm in the game, and I feel like that's the true value to HyperChange. Is when I talk about VC, like I'm really doing it because we're really out here deploying millions, talking to these A-tier VC deals, getting into them, getting my subscribers into them. Like, that's a grind. I know what I'm talking about now. You know, I'm interfacing with the C-suite levels of these companies that are changing the world. That's how I get the schemes. That's how I can bring you the amazing content. So that's why I'm also like, and the flip side is like, I'm not getting rich on content, you know, like I make a little money. I had to stop taking a salary for 6 months because I moved. I wanted to build my new set. I was paying too much rent. Then I don't know. I was just investing in new equipment. Like I bought my Tesla. Like I haven't paid myself for 6 months, but I'm like running at break even, right? But I'm not adding cash flow to invest. Like all my money I make is just because I'm investing in, you know, Unisocks, Tesla, SpaceX, Bitcoin, ETH. Like that's what's making me all my money, is actually my investment portfolio. And so I'm like, okay, this is dope, and I love HyperChange, and I love that it's kind of this engine of the whole ecosystem, but like I also frankly need the fuck you money, 25 mil, whatever they say. Like I want that because I have huge ambitions. I want to start companies. Like I'm not just trying to compound. I have like, you know, companies that require tens of millions of dollars that I want to start and fund myself and just do it independently. And like, that's my vision for my future. And so that means I need to monetize my audience right now in a way that we all win. I can get in the know, I can make content, I can make y'all rich if you're accredited, and I can get mine so that I have the ability to do these kind of crazy out there schemes in the next, you know, whatever, how many couple years. So I don't know, that's just me keeping it real, but
totally. No, I think that transparency is like good for your audience, right? Like that's what you're all about. And I'm curious, like when you think about like why you created HyperGuap, it was to get people access to the deals that you were doing, right? And so when you think about it over like the next, say, like 6 months or so, like what does that look like to you? And like if you're a HyperGuapper out there, like does that mean like getting more deal flow? Does that mean getting like seeing what the companies that you're scouting out? Like what does it mean to be involved like as a HyperGuapper?
Yeah, I mean it basically means you gotta be in the club and write the same startup checks that I write. And so I think we're gonna ramp up our deal flow totally. Like I want to do way more deals. I mean, so the thing about the HyperGuap deals though is they take like 2 years. Like the first couple deals I'm doing, like I've known these companies for years, and that's super important to me, is like this kind of, I really do my homework. Like it's not like I just meet the startup and I'm like, this is sick, I'll write you a check. It's like, nah, like, okay, like you're talking a lot of stuff, like let's wait 6 months and see what you built.
Right.
You know, and those startups deliver, and then they deliver in another 6 months, and then maybe I invest in them, and then they deliver again. And then I'm like, you know what? I think you're good enough to bring to HyperGuap. And so it's a really strict due diligence process, and I'm all about quality, not quantity with my deal flow. Like I'm not trying to just do a million SPACs, you know, and and just cash out 6 months later. Like, and I'm the first check into every deal, and I only get paid unless we get carry and cash out. So I think it's structured in this super cool way, but it's also like, I don't know, like we might not do another deal for 6 months because I just don't find one that I think is the creme de la creme, best in the world deal. But at the same time, and this is a weird thing I'm still working out because HyperGuap's new, like I just wrote 2 startup checks in LA in the past like 3 days, but they're super small checks, and I had to like finesse the hell out of it and they're not going to let me do an SPV because they're 2 exclusive rounds, and like I can't even really talk. One of them I'm going to make a video about, but the other one I can't yet. And so, you know, I'm just, like I said, playing the game, trying to finesse, but these are the relationships and the seeds I'm planting for potential HyperGuap deals years down the road. And so
totally, and I feel like part of what you're doing is like you said, planting the seeds so that when the time comes, you can let the HyperGuap community get involved in. Like you're writing these smaller checks that are quick one-off to like get into the company, and when the company has room for allocation, that's when you want to bring your followers over the hump and get them involved.
And my biggest advice to people who are getting into the VC game is, if you're getting access to a deal, the first thing you need to ask is, why are they giving me access to this deal? And frankly, like, you gotta kind of pay to play. I feel like in a lot of these things, like, they see I'm serious. Like, I finesse my way because I have a friend of a friend who lets me write that angel check, and then I get that one call with the founder, and I've given them 10 ideas. I'm on one, I'm trying to add value, and they're like, damn, this Gali guy gets it. Like, he's kind of scheming on a different level. Like, he's one of the people we want involved big time in the next round. And it can be that competitive if you want to get in these really good rounds. And so it takes the time to finesse that.
And how do you, so for you, it's like these conversations with founders, how do you get connected to these founders? How are you building your network of deal flow? Because to me, that's the secret sauce, because everyone knows someone who's trying to start something, right? But how do you start something? How do you find the people who are like doing the best thing, right? How do you get access to the best people, the people who are building the biggest companies, with like the best teams? What have you found that's worked out to make sure?
Yeah. It's a lifestyle, bro. That's my answer. It's a lifestyle.
It just becomes who you are.
It's just the people I'm talking to are either starting startups or funding startups or friends with people who are, and like it's sort of like, it doesn't feel like work to me, but I'll be up at 2 a.m. talking to some homie who's a founder who's telling me about his other homie who's a founder, and just like, because he thinks I think it would be dope, and like then this other founder emails me because he loves the show and thinks he's doing HyperChange stuff for an interview, but then I beg them to let me on the cap table. Like, you never know what it could be, but it's just kind of this like weird hybrid of like a digital content strategy, but just documenting my own journey as an investor, and then just that whole, like, I don't know, it just, does that make sense? The network kind of finds itself, and then like I hear about the deals, I call, you know, I hear about this kind of company, like let me call my friend who works in that industry, or maybe I know one of the VCs who funded you in an earlier round, let me call him up and see what he thinks, like, and then he's also mentioning this other company I should look at. Like, the amount of companies, it's insane, honestly. Like, and I wasn't till I get someone like you to talk to, where I can actually talk about all this stuff I'm doing. It's so fun because like I can't talk about it to anyone, and that's like one of the biggest, most frustrating things about HyperChange is like sometimes the coolest stuff I can't talk about, and like just all the successes, like just all the I don't know, it's just kind of like, that's really frustrating.
Is there something that is coming to mind that you feel like you haven't said that you want to say, like about like, or that you're allowed to say about some of the successes that you're thinking about, or some crazy startup connections?
I mean, I'm a big believer in people not tracking their returns, right? And just kind of trying to invest the best they can. But I don't like talking about, I don't know, like people like the NFT thing. Why are you dabbling so much in NFTs, Gali? What is this ETH thing? Why are you doing these crypto collectible socks? This is so dumb. This is not HyperChange. Like, why are you doing this? And it's like, okay, the flip side is like, I bought a Unisock for $60 and now it's worth 80 grand, and I got a dividend of 1,000 uni. That's $60 to 130 grand investment in 2 years. Like, that's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah,
and then I bought
$60 into 100.
Yeah, and then I bought 3.2 more Unisocks at $6,000, sold one at 22, sold another 0.2 at 32, sold another one at 105. Now I'm hodling another Unisock. Like, that's like, but I don't like, I'm not trying to like,
you're not trying to like,
I don't like bragging or flexing, and then it's like the startup investments are going up, but then I'm also like, am I leaving my cred off the table by not saying this? And like, you know, even someone like Chamath, like he's just constantly bragging about their returns, or Jason Calacanis, like every VC's bragging about this stuff on Twitter, and I'm like, I don't like doing that, but then I kind of feel like that's leaving, like, you know, I'm compounding my own capital at like hundreds of percent per year above anything, and I feel like I should be talking about that.
So I wonder,
you know, it's like 100x, honestly. Like in the past 2.5 years, I've 100x my snowball, which is like
insane.
Just like I don't know anyone who's like, who else found SpaceX at 35 right before the glow up, Tesla at 200, Tesla in 2012, Unisocks at 60, and was buying Bitcoin at 300. Like, you tell me who else is on that shit.
Yeah, there's very few investors that haven't checked all those different boxes.
Yeah, and like those were my biggest positions, and so
totally.
And now I think
but I feel like the framing to you is like what's bothering you is like talking about like the how much percent you went up. Like I feel like you don't like, or like X to Y, and maybe that's because it's more about like the product and the trend, because that's like more your passion. It's more of like, I got into Tesla when like the Model 3 wasn't even ramped. It was like, you know, like I got into Unisocks when it was like only a couple hundred people had them, and now like, you know, like, and now the market cap blew up like this. Like less specifically on your success and more about like you saw something in an idea before it was when everyone else saw it, and like, yeah, the returns gave you the returns that you got, but that's not what it was about. Yeah, totally. And then it's like, I don't think bragging about returns or making videos about that does anyone any good. It just gives FOMO, and it's like about flexing. Yeah. And I'm also like a little bit worried about saying if I'm making money on my investments, because then I think people will stop like supporting me on Patreon and thinking I'm authentic, and like that's a big worry I have. And like I do the Patreon newsletter, so I want to give people value for their Patreon. You want people to feel like they're like supporting the underdog, and you don't want people to feel like you're like got to a point where they don't feel like they need to support you anymore. Yeah, and like that kind of stresses me out, because it's like I'm doing well on these investments, but it's also like I don't have a real job, I don't have a retirement, like that, and like I'm not even making money from HyperChange. Like I have to literally, and so it's like, and it's like all your like you don't. It's not like you have a like you invest everything, right? Everything's back into the channel. Everything's back into new products or new companies. Like it's not like you're just like sitting on money because of these investments. Yeah, and like I like to think that my belief is that the people who kind of fund and back HyperChange are backing like I like when people back the Patreon, it's like I want to give you value. Like I'm going to try and prioritize your communication. I'm going to try and do like there was events and cool stuff I would do before COVID, like the Patreon newsletter. Like I literally sit down and write this newsletter once a week that all my Patreons get, that I think is like a sliver of my mind that's like really dope and valuable. And so I want to give that product to people if they support. Like it's not just a kind of donation. And then also with like the producer thing, like those are people who really want to support the show, and I want to put them in the credits and get them all these views for their credit and just have them be a part of the history that is the channel. So that is kind of, but so you don't think people want to know that like by doing their Patreon support that they help like I mean, with their support they've enabled you to do what you're able to do and like see the results. Like don't you feel like that's like rewarding for them, like that your success is their success and betting on you and helping you? Yeah, I hope they see it that way. Yeah, I mean, and it's like I don't know, it's kind of just uncharted territory, and like, because I feel like I still am the underdog in every situation I go into, but and like all these business negotiations, like it's just now that like we're scratching the surface on people taking me seriously as a VC and as a investor, even though it's like, I don't know, I think my track record speaks for itself. But, and so I don't know, it's just a fine balance, but I think I'm really ambitious with the stuff that I want to do in my career. And so by people supporting HyperChange, like even if the show is dope now, like there's so many levels beyond that I kind of want to do savagely with my own capital, and it kind of helps perpetuate that. So let's talk about that though, because like let's talk about what your fast electric sports car is to like your mass-produced electric car. You know what I'm saying? Like HyperChange, HyperGuap might be like your initial scratch surface of the big stuff you want to do to build that electric sports car. And so what does that turn into? Like where do you see yourself wanting to go? Yeah, I mean, so one of the kind of things I want to do with the Patreon and like with HyperChange, and like why I want it to get bigger and do it, is like a HyperChange event. Like when I talk about the sort of examples of sounds sick. Yeah, like this kind of event where like I prepare a really dope speech and like PowerPoint and presentation of some of the big ideas about the future, about the future. Just like Arc comes out with their like what the trends we're seeing. Like like have your own like thought leadership on like the world.
And invite all these dope people I know and like have them do speeches and just let people come and like make content about that and just have this crazy jam sesh about ideas. And like, as much as it feels like we won the Tesla problem, like I just see so many problems in society that are also massive opportunities that like we need smart people talking about and focused on. And so that's kind of like a big thing of my passion is like, damn, like how do we get the conversation to, you know, Seaspiracy, the fishing industry, all of those problems. How are we, you know, we need a lot of smart minds tackling that. Like I'm recorded this other video today about Tesla starting a tire company because tire pollution is too much of a thing. Like how many single-use plastic beverage things do we have? Like our trash is piling up, like the food system's too much of a stress on the planet. Like there's all of these industries that need change, and I think by highlighting them in a really cool, fun way and showing the business opportunity to change these industries, like we can actually move things forward and accelerate that.
Because I think that's the secret sauce though, right? Like so many people are talking about like plastic in the ocean or climate change or whatever it is. But very few people are getting people together that like actually can solve it from a business in the system that we're under, right? Like so many people might be coming at it from like a government perspective or an NGO or highlighting the issue, but HyperChange is potentially getting people together that like understand how you can make something feasible without bothering people. Like that's the secret sauce,
dude. And like honestly, so I'll give you an example, the Seaspiracy thing. So I do Seaspiracy, I watch it, I'm like super inspired, I make all these tweets. Next thing you know, this guy who follows me on Twitter is like this amazing, you know, clean tech sustainable fish food VC, and I'm on a call with him and he's sending me all this research and he's like, I'll introduce you all these companies, and like now that's a little seed of a conversation that's going to grow into this massive thing of change because just of that kernel of an idea. And so that's kind of the power, is like this powerful message of like the world needs to change, we need to make things better, but like how can we get the attention on the companies
fast, like
and the entrepreneurs.
You
know, I'm a big believer that a company is the best way to change the world, and that Tesla's proving that like Tesla is going to change the world more than any green charity or anything, because they're literally building the technology to get fossil fuels be economically irrelevant. And that's how you create change, is a VC backed or startup funded with billions of dollars working on revolutionary technology, bringing it to market with a crazy founder. That's how shit changes. That's what we need to get more of if we actually want to get out of this sort of climate death spiral I believe we're in. And so that's like what I'm kind of so passionate about, is connecting and bringing it to, you know,
because the companies with the right incentives, I mean, they have cash runaway, like they have a burn rate. You know, these VC backed companies, they're coming up with new ideas. They haven't been around, right? They're like innovative by nature. And so it's like, these are the things that we need to create more of, more companies that can do these types of things.
It's not even a VC, it's just like dope founders building it. Like I almost get so tired of everybody wants to be a VC, everybody wants to be an investor. Like I hate that. I'm trying to get out of this game and getting into the building real shit game. Because that's what the world needs. People actually creating real products and real services, and that you can buy, that change the world, not just like saying you want to invest in them over email or whatever. And so I think there's like,
so how do you see that changing for you then? Like if you think about like your career arc, like do you see yourself becoming more of like a builder and operator, or do you see yourself that already kind of in your VC role?
Yeah, I mean, it's dope. HyperChange is dope because I got to build a little media company, but also learn. And, you know, now I built a VC firm. We have HyperCharts, which does SaaS that makes money. Like it's kind of like been this crash course of getting my MBA in Business 101.
Like you are building all these businesses. You built a media company.
I pay my taxes. It's an LLC. Like we're making guap. I'm on payroll. Like whatever. Like, you know,
you hire people for projects.
I'm hiring all these cool freelancers. Like that's, you know, we put out a show that people watch. We're going to put out products. Like, I think I'm learning a little bit, but I don't know if I want to give too much clues about my new, because I don't even know what I want to do. I have a couple ideas, but
I think just on a high level, like you talked briefly about this idea of like, I want to like roll my snowball, and like where things are going with HyperChange and HyperGuap as you become a better investor and you getting into doper and doper deals. So like if you had like $25 million like right now, like that fuck you money that you talked about, like what would you do?
Well, one of my passions is obviously food. So one of the things I really want to do is to start an urban farm. and sort of create an R&D hub out of that to basically research all sorts of new farming methods and technologies and start implementing them. And I think our mono system of one silver bullet to fix agriculture is whack. And the entire thing is like, how do we actually build a new food system? And I think that's going to be very decentralized, very lots of different specialized crops. Like, I think we should be inventing new crops and new plants. And so there's all this like really cool opportunity that I see in the food space. And that's the first thing I would do, is spend like a few $1 million to rent a warehouse and to hire people and to like start some of these like plant breeding and growing projects that I've wanted to do but don't have the time to do.
And create more of like a local food supply.
Yeah, and like what do we need? And that's what I'm like whining about earlier in the episode. Like, nobody's got healthy fresh food. So it's like, what am I gonna do? Grow healthy fresh food.
Yeah.
You know, not that's like fancy, but like that's just one example of the way I think about the next arc of my career. And I really don't like the VC game. Like, I really like bootstrapping. I just think that's the way I build companies. And I don't know. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but like, it's kind of this optionality of like, I want to do something big and have a lot of capital and be able to do it my own way and not have to rely on other people believing in me for me to start it. And so that means like, just, you know, it's like Gary Vee. It's like, you have big ambitions, like you got to get there. Like you got to make big moves.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to make these big moves to like leverage my channel. And I also think like, just the people I'm getting into these deals, I don't know, making rich people richer is like kind of whack, but at least with HyperGuap, I'm getting people like really cool, dope, long-term, smart, in it for the right reasons investors into these awesome companies, which is better than the status quo of VCs putting funds into companies where their investors or LPs in the fund, they kind of want to just cash out for an IRR. They don't want to change the world. They don't even know which company it's going into, and they deploy the capital. Like, that's just kind of a whack system. So I think I'm building a better system of that, and that's dope, but it's really not fulfilling in a lot of ways. And I've realized that after doing my first VC deal, like, I'm just so unfulfilled, and like thought I would be so pumped when we wrote this huge check to Carta and like pulled off what was my dream to like, you know, do this multi-million-dollar thing. And then it's like, all right, like, what did I really just do? Like, I didn't even make any money on it yet. It's like not even, so there's no, and it's just not fun. Who cares? Like, what are they going to say about you? Like, oh, you helped people piggyback on someone else's idea, and like you piggybacked on their piggyback and like made money off that. Like, that's just such a lame existence in a lot of ways. And so
it seems like it's away from first principles of like what's meaningful to you.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the deeper I've gotten in investing, the more I've realized how it's meaningless, and unless you just want to accumulate resources to do something else, frankly. And like, it's important to invest, and it's important, like, telling the stories is what's important. I think that's where the magic happens, and that's what I like about HyperChange.
But I think like you're saying, like, there's meaning in the fact that you're getting to do what you want to do, and this is part of your journey and story. Like Tesla was like, we don't want to just build an electric sports car to like that wasn't the thing that was dope to rich people so they could have this really like dope car. It was like about creating this electric vehicle revolution. It's like, I want to invest in game-changing, innovative companies now, so I have enough capital and I can build like what I want to do and like refine my business skills, create community of like-minded people, right? So then you can like have the ability to do what you want to do. Like, this is like, you're in your sports car moment, I feel like, and you're kind of like, yeah, the meaning might not be there, but it's part of your journey, right?
Yeah, totally. And as someone who was like broke, and you know, the fact that you can do something and win, and that gives you confidence that like, all right, if I can do a VC firm, if I can like compete with CNBC, if I can do my own thing, at like, what else can I do? What else is possible? And so
totally.
that's been a super inspiring part of it. And I also like, we have this hella epic scene right here. I almost feel like we should like show, it's just so epic. But like, what I was thinking about this, I don't know why, it's like, people can see, but it's like I feel like it's a dope kind of metaphor for like all the opportunity I see despite all the problems. Like, I think we have so many problems in the world, but I see like opportunity at every turn. And I feel like if you were going to want to be born in an era, it would be born now, like literally this moment, because everything needs to change. The cars we drive suck. The food we eat sucks. The way our cities are designed sucks. The clothes we buy suck. The way it's all produced sucks. It's just, maybe I said sucks too much, but like, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these problems. There's all this like, and it's all just an opportunity to do it better, and then be like that person who did it better and changed the world for the better. That's just all the stories that are waiting to be told, is these amazing people who are like, wait, this problem's an opportunity, I'm gonna go change it. Like, that's so, I just feel like people are kind of not grasping the epicness of this moment in history right now.
Yeah, but I feel like the more that you can, like, you're telling that story, that people have opportunity, you're building community, you're getting people together who think like-minded about this stuff, and I feel like that, even if it just moves the needle like an inch, you know, like over time, is like such a big thing for like the human civilization. If you just like tell the story of electric cars, you get more people like equity, so more people have like feel like they're part of the businesses that they're building, like through Carta. Like, there's just so much that, like, even if it feels like small things, is like pushing the human race in the right direction. And with enough people behind that, like with the hyperchangers, like you are creating people who want to move the world in the right direction, and that's like super powerful,
dude. And I mean, one example of that is like, I don't know, you know, it's like HyperChange, making it seem way doper than it is, right? But it's like, the one thing I am pumped about that we did kind of change was like the Tesla earnings call moment. Like, that to me was really like this big moment of like the just in the box, closed-minded Wall Street mindset breaking, and like having this breakthrough where like the trajectory just kind of veered off to like, no, the thought of Tesla's not going to be on this quarterly bullshit. It's going to be on the vision. It's
like,
going to
we can do things different.
We can do things different. Like
it
can change, even if it is like the conference call of Tesla.
Yeah.
And Elon Musk is on the phone. Like,
yeah.
that can be disrupted. And the world can get behind you. Like, you know, Kathy Wood and MKBHD like tweeted after that and were pumped. And these are like my heroes, my idols.
Yeah.
And they're like on my side of like, Elon should have done that. This was a dope conversation. This is why Tesla's the future. And it's just like, that moment to me was like, wow, like there's so much potential, and like there's so much potential to just be on the right side of history and to just change shit that, like, I don't know, that really inspired me. Like, you talk about what could make me think this could go all the way. It's like shortly after that, I think is when but anyway.
But I think what you're saying about like the backhand of like tradition, like holding us back, and when we do things differently and move forward, like what we're able to do because of that.
Totally.
Right?
And I like what you're saying about starting the conversation, because that's like this, I got into it with my dad, and I'm like, he's talking about seaspiracy, and he's just like, that's never gonna work. Like, I'm a scientist. Like, how are you gonna grow plant-based fish products? They're gonna have more waste and pollution. They're too expensive. And it's like, well, what do you want to do, Dad? Give up? Just give up and be like, I don't have a plan. Like, the world population's too big. Like, fuck it. You know, that's what old people are at. But I'm like, no, we need to start having the conversation. And even if culture-based plant or like grown like fish meat isn't the answer, like those companies who fail in that space but who tried will have pushed the conversation forward. Like, we need smart people working about this problem and thinking about it and talking about it constantly. And that's how we're gonna start the progress, is like this conversation. Like, that's what, like, another big thing on the conversation, the air we breathe, very bad quality. We should start that conversation. How can we fix that? Our roads, super dangerous. There's a massive public health crisis, which gets flowed into us as a financial detriment through our tax burden. You know, why are we not talking about that? And so, as much as I don't like HyperChange, because just talking about what other people are doing, I do feel like there is a big unique moment to like, where talking about the things that need to be talked about is a place that needs a lot of work right now. And that's why like Gary Vee was so inspiring to me, of like, if you have a good message, if you're pumped about the future, like, get loud with that, because the world needs that shit. And I really, really believe that. Like,
and there's like so many things though, like we need more entrepreneurs like starting companies and doing stuff. Like you said, you look at the ocean, there's just so much opportunity to do things, and getting like-minded people together that are like and pushing each other to like start companies and connect with each other and building that community. Like, there's so many entrepreneurs and VCs that follow you and people within finance that want to make the world better, and like getting all those people in one spot, because they aren't maybe content creators, and bringing them together to then like talk about these problems and hash these out, like that is huge. And I feel like a lot of what you're doing is kind of like illuminating like the opportunity to like make change.
Dude, and honestly, I don't want to interrupt. You're getting me on this huge idea that I don't want to forget about government regulation. Like, I want to start open sourcing one-pagers of what I think new legislation should be. Like, not affiliated with a party. And I know this is super taboo and everyone hates politics, but
no, dude, this is huge.
I love the Joe Rogan joke. It's like, bro, like, the founding fathers come back alive and they're like, you didn't write any new shit?
Yeah.
Like, we haven't added any new fucking rules, dude? The iPhone came out. Like, what? Like, I just can't comprehend that. And so the fact that we're not talking about what laws should change, what are the laws going to be on Mars? I love how Elon Musk talks about that.
I think that's why Peter Thiel brought up, like, the seasteader movement. Like, where we're so, like backhanded by tradition, the way that things have been, that it's like we don't have that first principles perspective of, like, we're at this place now, how should we build stuff from scratch? And we've completely lost, like, how we should be thinking about, like, our how we, like, get fish, because we're like, oh, we got to fix our fishing problem and, like, create this. It's like, no, let's just think about the nutrients we need in general. You know, like, maybe we don't even need fish. You know, like, let's like think about just our food supply and, like, let's look at the technology that we have. You know, and it's like we just need to start looking at things differently instead of, like, looking at how things, like, the way they were.
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know, the political discussion to me is, I'm really passionate about that, about getting smart people who have ideas about how the future should be to start working with government.
Yeah.
Because I think our government is the world's, you know, biggest company, basically. And, like, we need to be activist citizens and shareholders by kind of updating the bylaws, making a sustainability goal that's better and real. Like, and I just think we don't have, you know, the world's smartest economists are making a ton of money in markets. They're not using their understanding. Like, I think the greatest investors are anthropologists, and that's what I strive to be. Totally. Someone who studies humanity and how it's going to change. And if you study the past of humanity and how we've lived and how that's changed, it becomes very crystal clear to see the future of where this is all going. And so I think the greatest investors are anthropologists. Like, you look at what happened with the internal combustion engine fossil fuels for 100 years. That was our propulsion system, but now it's getting too expensive. Geopolitically, people don't want to rely on this complex, you know, global network. It's getting cheaper. The technology's there. You know, people want this. We're pricing in negative externalities about the climate into our societies. This is just the moment between a bunch of combination of economic, political, and technological factors for this to be the EV revolution. And so and that's the Tesla investment. And we also have this computer eating the world, or software eating the world, computer on wheels thesis. So there's just so, like, it's really an anthropological understanding. So I think once we bring that lens to the political world and say, like, capital gains tax, like, we should stagnate that and make it super upfront, and then, like, basically 0% if you hold a company for 10 years.
So you, like, incentivize long-term thinking.
Ladder, you know, like revenue tax, you know, so Amazon can't avoid paying taxes. Let's just charge 1% on revenue or something, if that's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think there's a huge opportunity to, like, tax companies for single-use products. Like, Coca-Cola pollutes so many plastic bottles. Starbucks. I mean, I'm guilty of that all the time. Like, I literally have a Coca-Cola product right here. But, like, it's a vitamin water, and it's, like, got this single-use plastic. This is garbage. I hate that. But, like, I needed something to drink, and I was super thirsty, and, like, I didn't have my water bottle, and, like, I had to. I don't know. So I'm getting sidetracked. But the point is, like, I see this big crossover, and so I want to start using my platform to, like, really kind of think bigger, and yeah.
Well, I think that's interesting because we get so siloed, right? Like, into, like, companies or, like, public service or whatever it is. But it's all about just making humanity better. Like, that's the core theme at the end of the day, right? And I think China has an interesting model where it seems like the public and private sector are much more intertwined, which gets a lot of, like, hate from the U.S. system. But it's like, I think the truth of the matter is, like, how can we, like, get more of a harmony between, like, regulation and economic incentives, so we're moving our society in the right way, and what are things that we can put forward to make us on long-term thinking, to make us sustainable, to make us build these types of companies, to get that type of funding and tax credits so that we move in the right direction, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I don't know, that's honestly another tangent that I think is kind of funny to bring up is, like, I'm super big. Part of me is like, I kind of want to, as much as I want to build stuff and, like, do this real, like, running your farm thing, I feel like the other end of that question is, like, what else do I want to do with my platform? Like, make content, like, make art, like, make, like, videos, make music, make comedy. Like, those are things I'm really passionate about. And I feel like even if I like it or not, like that's what I've stumbled into as my career kind of. And so that's another way I see going, is like using my platform to like, or just like, what is the show? It's a digital file that exists on the internet that people interact with. And so that's my business, is creating digital files or content. And so I want to get into comedy and music, and those are two areas that like I've been working on that I suck at now. You got to suck to do everything, but that I want to just bring, that's what I am super passionate about, what brings me joy. And I think if you're gonna pick something to do for your career as an entrepreneur or whatever creator person, like you have to be happy first. Like you have to be selfish as fuck and be doing it for you because you want to do it every day. And if you have that, and you know that, and that no matter what it'll make you happy to do it, then like you have what it takes to succeed, and take all these beatings down from the world that say you suck and you're not dope and you're doing it wrong and that's gonna ruin your so I see one path as like a builder in my career, but I'm like, maybe I'm just tripping. Like that's not actually my calling. My calling is to like do content and like embrace that and try and blow up and get my audience on sort of this funny content wave bigger, because that also equates to power. And then I can use my spotlight of shining attention in a positive way on these issues. And I think making YouTube videos with a financial whatever is great, but I also think culture is so much more than that. It's, I love painting is culture, music is culture, like comedy. I think stand-up comedy is one of the most underappreciated ways to change culture and to rethink about our world and what's around us and the ridiculousness of it and how we can change it. And so that's a really powerful medium. Like I think comics are extremely underappreciated. And so that's something I want to do. And like, I don't know. And part of me thinks it's lame to just like make videos and content, but the other part of me is like, I don't know, maybe that's what I'm gonna do instead. So
yeah, and I think it's all about doing what is your jam, right? And if you have all these things, that's when you're gonna do the best. Like you're gonna be happiest about doing it when people say you don't want to do it.
Yeah, and honestly, like that's what I was so proud of yesterday. Like I put out this trading chick video, which people thought, how to make an NFT. Yeah. Honestly, got a lot of hate for that, but like I loved it. It was like such a great troll video that just captured the level of trolling the NFTs are, that captured what this era is of just ridiculous online people doing ridiculous online things with this ridiculous online metaverse that's transcending in the real world. We shot it on Rodeo Drive, like just the IRL NFTs, if you it just like I loved the artisticness of the content because of how it captured a moment of time that I think may or may not be absurd in the financial moment, and that's why the video may or may not have been, like, it was so meta. So I was proud of that. I broke out of my mold to do different content, and then I was so proud that I also made a beat for that video. So one of the like transition beats, like I made that from scratch, made it, produced it, mixed it, whatever, like literally from scratch on my computer. It's not that dope, but like I did it, and I made this 30-second comedy video that was my first comedy video that I got to put on my normal YouTube channel. So like that was me being like, damn. And I called it Troll Tuesday when I tweeted, but I was like, maybe that's what I do every Tuesday, like drop a beat, do a comedy video, and make an out of the box HyperChange video. Like that's the kind of like, I don't know, like I don't plan my career and what I'm doing ahead of things that much, but I plan like how I want to put my work into stuff and how I want to like allocate my attention and focus and effort. And that's how I'm kind of doing it now, is like having these like creative outlets.
Because that's like super interesting to me. Like you don't plan too far in the future, but like you do in the short term. Like you think about like how you plan your flow. But like, dude, you're such like people box themselves in, right? Like I'm an investor, I'm a content creator, I'm in real estate, I'm an astrophysicist, like I'm an engineer. It's like what happened to being just like Renaissance people, like just being like interested in the world? Like I'm a fisherman, I'm into motorcycling, I'm into like basketball, I'm into investing, like we boxed ourselves into categories, and I feel like you're really like people are so like we're not just one-dimensional people.
We're not.
Like I feel like generations before us, because of like the industrial age, were put in these boxes, and now like with the advent of like the internet and being able to learn so much on your own, like you can do anything. Yeah,
it's easier to do all that stuff. It's the era where it's dope to be less specialized. You want to be talking on your show, you want to be shooting your show, you want to be having your friends who are on your show, like you want to just
do it all.
And I think it's a really beautiful time, and I've kind of had to embrace that. Like I used to think of myself as an investor, like I'm not creative, like I'm not a video guy, like I'm not a artist. I'm not a this. I'm not a that. I'm this because that's what people tell me I am. Like, I have to dress like this because that's how people think an investor dress. Like, it's just like, and I feel like I lived in that box my whole life. And then it just took me a while to be like, why am I not a creative person? Like, why am I not a designer? Why can't I shoot videos? Like, and it's just kind of
like, I'm just going to be
breaking
me
out of that
mindset. I'm just going to be me and I am that type of thing.
Exactly. And try to not overthink it. And like, thank you, Aidan. Really appreciate it,
dude,
bro. This was hella fun, honestly. I didn't know where it was going to go.
Super fun, dude.
All right. Peace out, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Definitely leave a comment, right? Why not?